Awesome talk, awesome talk. We got some awesome talk today. Awesome talk, oh, awesome talk. You all like the way we talk. It's awesome, awesome talk, oh, awesome talk. You like the way we awesome talk. It's awesome talk, fucking awesome talk. You like the way we talk. It's fucking awesome. Ooh, yeah.
Why didn't I check the profile first? Okay,
We're coming in.
now we have to be quiet.
Coming in hot.
We are live. We are live, folks. Welcome to Awesome Talk, a quarantine edition number 29 on May 14th, 2021. We have a great show for you tonight. Don't mind me. I think I have a minor bit of food poisoning this evening, but luckily I have this bottle of Steel Reserve that Rob brought me 2 weeks ago, and the 19-year-old in me is saying, is that really enough for one night? Because I'm not really sure. So that's helping. Tonight we have a great show for you. Great show for you tonight. Of course we do. Tonight our guest is Jessica, who is a trans-informed activist and a genetic genealogist who works on cold cases for missing trans people. So welcome to the show, Jessica.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to the show. So
Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight, we're gonna spend like half the night with your your basic awesome talk, and then we're gonna move into what Jessica does and
Basic awesome talk, just depressing shit.
Yeah, depressing shit. And we're gonna move. So hold on a minute here. Something's up with my shit. Oh no, there's nothing up with my shit. My shit works just fine.
Something's up with my shit.
Yeah. Okay. Everything's good now. So yeah. So and then we're gonna move into what Jessica does. And for those of you who have questions, or those of you who know anybody who is either interested in this or really could use the education from this, start funneling them this way. So
Gary's in the chat. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Gary, what's up?
I'm attempting to multitask, so I'm going to try and listen as I can tonight. This is an important show.
Thank you very much, Gary. Oh, I see my mom is in the chat. Hi, Mom.
Oh, I didn't see anybody else in the chat yet because mine is all stupidly slow. Oh, now I see people.
So, I think I need to address something that's going on right now because it's a little obvious. And if we don't address it, I feel like we would be, we'd be fucking up if we didn't talk about it. We're currently, hey Alexis, how's it going? We're currently living in a country where people are putting gasoline in plastic bags.
That is the world we're living in. Yes.
Yeah.
Did you just figure that out?
And it's, it's just one of those things where when you think things just can't get any stupider, it just continues to get stupider. And like, I watched a video of a woman filling up a plastic store bag with gasoline, and it sprung a leak. So her solution was to run and get another bag to put that bag in, and then tie it up and load it into the trunk.
Dude, I already said that the answer to this problem is stop using plastic bags and start using those grocery tote bags that they give you to reuse.
Could you imagine?
Alexis said, I hope they all blow up.
I think a car did blow up.
Yeah, somebody blew up their Hummer.
I think another woman just blew up too. Two people now.
Oh, two people now.
Mike in the chat, Rob, wants to know, did you quit teaching and start building motorcycles? Your facial hair is giving it away.
What am I supposed to say to that? Yeah.
we all wait for an answer. We're all like,
I got a 1940s sidestep pickup outside, primer gray, and everything in my life is black and gray. So I figured.
Mine too, Rob.
Play the part out. You know what I mean?
Well, Rob, I like that mustache. I can't grow a mustache like that. I can't do it. I don't know why.
So quick story. I wasn't going to do that, but the dude I've worked with at one of the bars that I work at, he's got handlebars, and we've been friends for like 20 years. And he joked with me that I wouldn't shave. That the mask becomes a problem, man. Like, it's just messes everything up. It's hard to do anything with that. And he was joking with me, and I noticed that I was getting really gray and really thin. So I needed to trim it up to regrow some back of what I was doing. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll do something. And he
why
was
is
like,
it getting thin?
What do you mean?
Well, you said it's getting gray and it's getting thin. What? Because, like, for me, like, you know, I have bad anxiety, right? And bad habit for my anxiety is I go like this constantly. And I've had anxiety so bad that I've come home and she's been like, what the hell happened to your face? Because, like, half the goatee is missing. So when you said yours was thin, I was like, oh, are you doing the same thing? Are you pulling it out?
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny that you say that. I don't have bad anxiety. Yeah, I have anxiety. I don't have terrible anxiety, but what happens is I get like active. I don't know how to describe it. And no matter what, when I'm sitting, I feel like I'm like you ever see like a 7-year-old with long hair who like nibbles on the ends of their hair? I end up doing that. Like, I just do this. Or I do this, Rick, like you just said. If I have a full beard, I'll just pull on it and like look and just sprinkle, like just, and after a while, a couple straight nights of that, if you're having a bad anxiety attack or you're feeling like you got a lot of shit going on.
Dude, if you go out on a date and the chick notices some like curly fucking little hair stuck between your teeth, she's gonna be like, dude, like.
Oh my God, that's crazy! You should say that. I went to the dentist one time, and I was like, I guarantee there's a beard hair stuck in my gum.
And he's like, sure, that's what it is.
I went through the whole cleaning thing, and she found the fucking hair, dude. Like, she found the hair that I told her that was there. It came out. It was this big because I was like, and something just went up into my gum because that's what happens. I'm happy that Rick shared his story first because it just allows me to feel more comfortable.
This could really turn into a support group for my sister said that a friend of hers with anxiety pulls her eyelashes out.
Yeah,
I actually know someone else that does that, and I noticed because she had. I know someone that does that because there were all these eyelashes on her cheek. I was like, where did they come from? What the fuck's going on here?
Yeah. Gary just said he literally has to take Xanax before he can get out of bed every day. It's a 2-hour fight for him to get out of bed. And
I know that feeling.
I fucking get it, dude. It's some of it is comfort and some of it is like, oh, and everything comes like, there's so much fucking going on that, you know.
Yeah.
I love that Pat is just silently sitting here like, I don't know what your problem is. I'm totally chill.
Is that not quintessential Pat?
It's exactly classic Pat.
If I was going to show, I'd call it exactly Pat.
If Pat lit a cigarette right now and just fucking rocked back real quick, I'd be like, yeah, that's Pat. He's not going to talk until about 45 minutes into this.
Yeah, and then what he says is going to be utterly profound and amazing. So
let's not get ahead of ourselves.
We're setting a fucking bar, okay? The bar is right here.
So a lot of things have happened. So, you know, in the last couple of weeks, and the last show that we had, you know, we had a guest who Skyped in from India, and we really focused on that, and we missed a bunch of other things that have been going on in the world that I wanted to get everybody's opinion on. And one of them is this is how long it's been since we've had an opportunity to talk about certain things. But one of the things that happened was Derek Chauvin was found guilty, and I wanted to know what you guys thought was going to happen with that, because for me personally, I still don't think the guy's going to do any real time.
If he does time, it's going to be in protective custody, and I'm of the opinion that's not really 100% justice.
There were other people brought up, though, no?
Yeah, I think they've been indicted so far.
Yeah, I don't think it happens until August.
Yeah, and his sentencing is not going to be for a while either. It's really going to depend on the judge. I'm most concerned about that because we've seen it before where people have, you know, police officers have been convicted of murder or manslaughter or whatever, and the judge is like, well, you've served the community, you've done your time, like this was just a really bad mistake, we're not going to punish you for it. So it's really going to come down to the judge. But I hope that the rawness of like literally we all saw the video, I don't know, like the rawness of it, like at one point he was crying out for his mother, and then hearing the testimony of like, I think they had someone who was like 11 years old there crying about like feeling guilty. And I hope that weighs on the conscience of the judge, and like he's like, okay, this is a serious thing, and like, we need to make an example out of you. I don't hold my breath that would happen. And I don't think that even if he does serve time, he's still going to be protected while he's in custody. So I don't know. It's I'm happy, but it's also kind of like, well.
Alexis just said that the judge just added another charge.
Oh, good.
I didn't hear anything about that. Some sort of cruelty-related charge.
Apparently, some woman was just arrested for leaving a pig's head at the home of Derek Chauvin's witness or something.
Was it who was it? That fucking medical witness that's like, yeah, that's not how he didn't die from,
there's
being needled on, that guy.
Door all over the garage. They like splattered blood all over the fucking house.
They did to who? To Chauvin's house or?
A
witness. Okay. Jeez, man. A pig's head.
Where did the pig's head come from?
It's
Butcher.
I see.
Can you just go to a butcher in New York and be like, yeah, I need a whole pig
not
head?
Wrong.
They're gonna give you. Go ahead.
She said that it wasn't given much airtime. It happened the other day. I looked it up. I didn't hear about that.
I mean, that makes me hopeful. Another thing that made me hopeful was when they came back so fast. And it was guilty on all three, and it literally, like, I was expecting it to take days, because a case like that generally takes a long time, and the majority of people tend to side with the police officer. So I was expecting it to be more of a whole, like, days long thing, but when they came back so quick, I was like, wow, okay.
Well, I think the video was like extremely compelling and obvious. Like you can't argue with that. You just watched him get murdered.
Yeah, and that's but that's the part that blows my mind, because how many times now have I seen a cop just shoot somebody and like they walk?
Yeah.
So when I saw this, it was like it doesn't get rawer than that video was. And I was more disturbed at how long of a trial we fucking needed in order to get an answer at the end of this. I was like, what are we discussing here? We all watched it. He smirked at the camera with his knee in this guy's throat. So it makes me wonder whether or not, do you guys think that things are changing right now when it comes to law enforcement at all in this country? Because ever since this specifically, and the wave of killings that surrounded it, I feel like I'm hearing a lot about different things not being changed like on a national level, but on a localized level. It sounds like there are some communities that are like, all right, enough's enough. Our police department doesn't need a fucking tank and a bazooka. We're gonna start changing the way we do things a little bit. And there's a lot of pushback on that makes no sense at all. It's a Tucker Carlson fueled pushback, but like it doesn't make any sense. But I wonder if you guys think that there is any real changes coming in regards to this. Have you seen anything? Do you have any hope for that?
I've seen some changes, but then it will normally be with the local departments, or if they get somebody in a hired in a position where they have some power and they're like, wait, these things that are happening, this is not right, we need to fix this. Then you start seeing it change, but it's because that one person, got into a position where they could make a change. And I think a lot of the time, they were probably kept out of those positions previously.
The only changes that I've really noted that I was happy about is the number of places in the country that are now setting up a different service. So that way, if there's like a mental health emergency, people aren't calling the cops, which like, I can't not fucking believe it took this long, because if I had someone in my home that was having a mental health crisis of some sort, it would never even occur to me to call the cops ever. I would just instinctually know that's the worst fucking thing I could do. And, you know, but there are times where like people just don't know where else to go. And I'm happy that people are now given an alternative that's safer for a million reasons. And I really hope that that happens everywhere. I feel like it should happen everywhere. And, you know, for people that get angry about that, it's like, if you are like, oh, back the blue and all this shit, how are you not supporting this? Otherwise, you're asking cops to do something that they're not trained for. They have no idea how to deal with, and it's not their fucking job. So why wouldn't you support this? Exactly. It's a good thing for cops.
So here's the problem.
Not have to be a doctor.
The problem is, again, you know, you're saying something really logical. And the problem is that the population of people that believes that nothing needs to change also simultaneously believe that none of these cops have done anything wrong. So if they don't think that anything is wrong, you're going to get 50% of the country pushing back, telling you, well, what the hell do we need these changes for? Just honor your police. And I don't know how to reach those. It's the same problem with people who don't wear masks, with people who put gasoline in grocery bags. Like, I don't know what to say anymore to these people, because I feel like I'm really sick and fucking tired of and I've said this a million times in the show, but like, I'm really sick and fucking tired of there's two sides to the argument. There's not always two sides to an argument. Sometimes there's just a bunch of people who are wrong. And because you band together, it doesn't mean you now have a movement and a side. You're just a bunch of people who are incorrect.
No, being wrong and loud just means that you're loud and wrong. That's it. It doesn't make you more right.
A lot of people are chiming in here. It's not going to get better. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Mike said, I hope the funds get moved around towards training and mental health services. Yeah, I fucking hope so too. Alexis said, I have an autistic son and I'm nervous if a cop pulls him over. I have to teach him what to do. It still scares me. Yeah, it scares me. Are you saying gas in a 30-gallon Rubbermaid container isn't safe? Mike, we would never say that. We would literally, none of us would ever fucking say that.
Never.
Mike made a good point. He said that I think he was saying the reason why the charges happened was because this was more brooding than a shooting. An officer discharging his weapon is viewed as part of their job. That's an interesting point. That's an interesting point. I wonder if that, that's interesting. I never really thought about it that way. And my sister said that if they didn't do anything about it, they knew it would have been another Rodney King situation. I think it probably been.
I think that's actually a good point. I think that's exactly what would have happened.
That's what worries me. What worries me is that the judge saying he's guilty versus the sentencing is so far apart. I'm like, are they hoping that the flames go out long enough? Go ahead.
Rick,
I'm sorry.
Rick, before you even kind of go down that road, I think exactly what you're going to see is a lightening of everything. They'll do it. The presence is there, right? And then the follow through will not be what you think it's going to be. You know, at its very core, it's going to be the shock value. It stopped it. Everybody rejoiced. And then let's moderately handle it so this person doesn't really have to deal with much, because more than likely he would get killed in prison.
Definitely.
That's what I was saying. It's
people,
not.
I don't think a lot of people go down that road, right?
No.
Like that guy. I mean, some of it, it seems fucked up, and the judicial system's a little fucked up. But death sentence or not, that dude's a marked dude anywhere. That guy is the level of a child molester.
Well, I mean, imagine that dude being put in a prison with other people he put in prison.
Yep.
Not gonna fucking be good for him.
Right.
Put him in protective.
But should we give him special treatment just because of that?
he's gonna
Well, that's
get
what they're
special
gonna do.
treatment, whether he should or
That's
not.
what they
He's gonna
do.
get it.
Yeah, that's what they do. When you have when it's a known fact, like if a police officer or corrections officer goes to prison, it's on site. That's a known fact. But they have to put those people in protective custody. That's what protective custody is for.
Yeah, but if this guy wasn't a cop, he'd still be in protective custody. This would turn into a bad press move for anything in the judicial system or in the the prison system, because you're throwing him to the wolves, but you're going to have to explain what the hell happened after that if you don't protect him, and that could uncover a bunch of stuff in the corporate prison system. And I think that there's other underlying factors that are worked into the DOJ that, whether you love it or hate it or you're critiquing it, there's just some things that happen, and those are part of those things. It's unfortunate, but
it's the truth.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about how twisted the system is around us too, because we have to sit here and have this conversation. Well, what's going to happen to this guy if any one of us put our knee in anybody's neck and killed them in the street on camera with a smirk on our face? There's no fucking question what would happen to us. You know what I mean? For him, man, it's just, then you got half the country who wants to believe that George Floyd died of fentanyl. People who don't even know what the fuck fentanyl is, they say that shit all the time, and like it's just this is ugly, man.
Yeah.
You know what I've noticed in reference to that recently with conversations that I've had with a couple people that are on both sides of the political spectrum, just minor conversations. But what I've noticed is that at the end of the day, if you really have a long, kind of digging conversation with them, at the heart of it, people are so anti-capitalistic and don't even realize it. They like capitalism because they have what they have. And it's just an observation, but like, they love what they have. They can buy things, they can compete with each other, they can outdo each other. That class system and mobility has something to do with it. But at the end of the day, they all tend to agree on the fact that there should be free healthcare for most people, or everybody that's a citizen of the United States, right? And they also believe that college should be accessible to everybody. That's the majority of the conversation I've come across, and that's from liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans. But I'm not so sure they understand how intertwined that is, how integral to our economic system that is, and the millions of dollars and jobs that will be lost, and the billions of dollars of revenue that go towards the government because of lobbying and all that other shit. So when we gripe about that stuff, it's really fucking rough, because I've come to the realization that it would cause an economic collapse. So of course the politicians are corrupt. Of course all that shit's there. But like, at the end of the day, the prison system is part of that. It's part of the like 5 major elements of our capitalistic system. And it's really hard to accept some of that shit. And people get really polarized over it. Blows my mind.
I think what I kind of was really disappointed and disgusted with was like the fact that so many people were willing to throw away, like the excuse that, oh, he was on drugs, or like that he was high. The fact that people were so willing to throw away somebody because they had an addiction problem, and that just dying in such a horrific fashion. And this is like an attitude I find like in general in our current society too, although it's changing a little bit, but like addicts are just treated like it's okay, like you're beyond redeemable, and like fuck you, like you deserve to die in a horrible fucking fashion, and you deserve to go to jail, and you deserve all these terrible things, when really it's like, it really is a mental health issue. And it's also just like, I don't know, like we have the resources to deal with this shit, but they're being redirected into putting people into prison rather than coming up with like ways so that people can have recovery. I think that's more of an, I don't know. I think personally that's more of an economic impact too, because you're having all these people who can contribute to society, can contribute to the economy, but the fast, easy way is to just lock them up because they have an addiction issue. I don't know, that's like a controversial thing to say, but like one of the things about George Floyd, like that really pissed me off was the fact that people were just so willing to be like, well, he was on drugs, so fuck him. He should have died that way.
You know what? I think that, like for me, when I hear people say things like that, I don't really just take it as that, like, oh, they just look down on people that have like a substance abuse problem. I see it as that's the excuse you're going for to mask that you're fucking racist. Because if he was a white man, you wouldn't be trying so hard to find something about him to paint him as a villain. Yeah. If he was a white man, you wouldn't be like, well, what has he done in his past to make him look like less of a fucking person? Like, I don't remember the last time a white person had something fucked up happen to them and they were like, former, fucking domestic, whatever the fuck, like just name something that they were in the middle of at some point, whatever. That doesn't happen. It happens with people that aren't white. And that would just happen to be George Floyd's thing was fentanyl. But if it wasn't that, I guarantee you it would have been something else. Oh, he fucking stole chips from the store last week. This guy is just a serial fucking, thief. Like, fuck this guy. Like, it could be anything. Like, there's always an excuse. It's the same thing with, like, the whole, like, I was talking about this the other day, the whole, like, kneeling during game shit. Like, people weren't, they were like, oh, I don't want to fucking see that shit during my game. Like, they're disrespecting the flag. Like, you're not pissed off because you think they're disrespecting the flag. You're pissed off because a black man that you want to be quiet and entertain you fucking spoke up about something and it interrupted your fucking game time, even though it didn't interrupt your fucking game time. And like, stop masking it with a fake like anger about something else and just say he's black and that's why I don't fucking like it, because he stepped out of line and I need all these fucking people to know their place. That's what I hear when I hear people say shit like that, is like they didn't know their place. Like, that's all it is just fucking racism, and it comes in all these different other excuses because racists are usually fucking cowards.
Well, that's it. Because if you're blatantly racist, then the rest of your friends can turn around and disavow you. If you're out there saying, the N-word and being really blatant about your racism, you can't do that anymore because now you're a social pariah and you have social consequences. So you can't do that. No, now you have to do the same thing, but you have to be fucking sneaky about it.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Can I ask a question?
Anthony in the comments said this is a high risk lifestyle that makes cases get deprioritized all around. Yep. Truth is that everyone matters. Exactly.
Don't you feel to a certain extent though, even the racist part of it? Well, that might be systemic and that might be an endemic of American kind of populations wherever you are in the United States. Don't you feel at the end of the day, if you really cut it all down, it's economic?
No.
And it's
no.
No. Well, they definitely overlap each other in a lot of ways.
That's what I'm saying. No. That's what I mean.
About the American system is meant.
But the Republican Party, the Republican Party is filled with rich white men. Those people are not economically anxious and they're racist as fuck.
Oh no, I get that for sure. 100%.
Right? Like, poor people are not deluded into being racist. We're around people from other races and other countries all the time, way more than people who are better off economically, because we live in the same neighborhoods and we do the same jobs.
Here's what I kind of interpreted it as. There's a really good solid group of people that were upper middle class in the 1970s and the 1980s, and they came out of the 60s fairly quietly either racist because of their parents or incredibly liberal and open because they were hippies and they were people that were obviously liberal. Those people got older, and they carried with them some of the earlier connotations that were told to them by their parents and built up stereotypes and so on and so forth. But the reality was they weren't really looking at them like that other than to hear those words and stuff. The correlation was now lesser than equals, economic status. And then it turned into accepting that not only did you have stereotypes portraying those groups of lower class people, and that equated to certain races and certain ideas that you don't even know that you're racist. You don't even know that you're correlating that. I think that people psychologically, in their social evaluation of people who live in certain areas, ghettos, projects, whatever you want to call them, and then migrate into places because of the correlation of their skin tone or their ethnic background, often are terrifying to people who think they made it somewhere. And at the core of that is economic. You think you've made it somewhere if you've accumulated a lot of money. So people who don't have access to that and people who don't necessarily have the ability to get there then portray a stereotype, and the other people who don't want them in their neighborhoods turn into these racists that they didn't know they were before, because they have these kind of underlying connections. And I don't mean to...
If you don't want black people in your fucking gated community and you can't figure out that makes you racist, then I guess you also can't figure out that you're probably stupid. Like,
Sarah,
there's like, how do you help
think
that
about
person?
That. But think about that population. Think about how many people in the United States, not to talk in terms of like inferior, superior terms of education, but how many people don't have above a 10th grade understanding of most of anything. And how many people have not been taught politics. They haven't been taught the judicial system. They know nothing about civics.
Racism is ingrained from very small children, and black children and brown children do not have the luxury of being clueless about how they're going to be treated.
Exactly.
One of the little girls in my neighborhood was 5 years old, had a little white boy at school pull a knife on her and say that he was going to slit her throat. And you know what the school did? Fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, Rob, I was going to say too, like, even you have to like go back and think about how race is taught in America. Mm-hmm. And even like...
Exactly.
Like if you learn about indigenous history and you learn about like Black American history, it's not the same as it's not even used in this. It's used in the lens of like Western white civilization. Yeah. So inherently, like even as we're all learning, like even now, like me having my degree and like learning, I can go back a couple years ago, 10 years ago, or however long it was, and think about everything that I've learned, and it's all had this Western civilization is like the best.
Sure.
You know, English civilization is the best. You know, they were the great colonizers. They were the conquerors of the world. And you don't ever hear anything about the contributions of the African American community to American society. You don't hear about indigenous contributions to American society. It's always this Western lens that we have on. Sure. So even from like I don't think it's necessarily economic, because I know of people who I love that are white and not racist at all, but being around someone, they're the, you know, like someone who is not white or someone who's Black, they're the first person to be like, nah, I need to be a little careful. It's the attitudes that we're taught, and it's ingrained in literally every faction of like American society, from education to our tax system to
in all parts of your life.
Yeah.
Before you die, before you're born, you have to face racism as a Black child, and after you're dead, you still have to face racism as a Black person. It is everywhere. Yeah. It doesn't stop.
Right.
I think it's. I'm
not defending the separation between white and Black people. I'm actually talking about everybody, because if you think that racism to most people exists as a white and Black thing, it's Black and Black, it's multi shades, it's different ethnographics, it's people have stereotypes. They don't like each other. You know,
stereotypes
it's
and racism are not religion. The same thing now.
Yeah, like we're talking about like systemic, like what's built into the system to keep people down, and you know, like which is slightly different than like personal stereotypes or whatever. Like, hey, I don't like people with handlebar mustaches.
We started this conversation.
Here's the thing, though.
That's what I was going to say.
If a black person doesn't trust white people, there's a lot of really good reasons for that. But if a white person doesn't trust a black person, it is literally just because they're racist.
That's such
black
a good
people
point.
Get hurt by white people all the time.
We started this conversation talking about the prison system, though, and that's what I was talking about, was the economic status of this. Pat, were you going to say something in regard to that?
Yeah, exactly. Back to that, I was going to say that it reminds me of like the homeless situation, the whole economic part of the prison system, and why they don't rehabilitate inmates is because it's not that it costs too much to do it. It's that they don't want to give them something for free because they want them to work for it like everybody else has to suffer and do.
Right.
And, like all that shit. And then on the other side, it's like the whole argument with the hostile architecture. How they say it's cheaper to put up hostile architecture instead of giving the homeless housing. But
that shit makes me
the argument falls apart when they do the math, and then they say, well, they have to work for it. We can't just give them stuff for free.
No, it's just that people don't like to see homeless people outside their favorite fucking Nordstrom. That's the problem.
That's true.
And that's like the fucking truth of it. It's too ugly to look at. I don't want to think about it. That's what that shit is. That's just it's the least humane fucking shit. Wait, I want to read some of the comments because there's so many of them.
It's the same thing with blackness. It's poverty and blackness in America are viewed as criminal. And that's a controversial statement for me to say.
Exactly right. Exactly.
But you're correct.
It's like, how dare you be in this country and be not this cis white, religious Christian married with a woman or a man and 2.5 kids. Like, how fucking dare you?
How do you how much do you think? I have a question for everybody. How much do you think that is really? I want a percentage from everybody. What do you think the percentage of Americans are that believe in that 1965 American dream?
So here's the thing, man. I think it's oh man, that's a really good question, because to me, I feel like people are so indoctrinated into that belief structure that I think there are people who believe that don't even do it themselves. And that's really weird to me.
That's actually a great point too, that their beliefs in that, I mean, that's what that Make America Great Again shit was. It was bring it back to that. And
right, it's exactly what it was.
That was the thing that never fucking existed.
Probably great.
Poor people never had that.
Right. I'm saying 75% of the population, 75% of the population probably didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. What do you mean? What
do you mean by Make America Great
and we
Again?
knew where the fuck we were. What are you talking about, man?
By Make America Great Again? Is that the question? What did he mean by that?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He
meant go back to 1950s/1980s bullshit, and man goes to work, little woman stays home. It's exactly what the fuck. And whenever anybody says traditional values,
but that was literally never the reality for most people.
Everybody, for everybody.
Right. My family was poor. My great grandmother told me, she's like, no, everybody worked. The kids worked. The adults worked. They sent out the toddlers to go and do stuff. Everybody worked. We were poor. What the hell are you talking about? I couldn't stay home.
Alexis just nailed it. That's exactly what it is.
Read it. What'd she say?
Women back in the kitchen, have babies, know your place. Blacks know their place.
That's right.
How dare anybody in any other community that doesn't fit my beliefs step out and open and have. I'm still dumbfounded by the marriage thing. I don't get it.
Does it seem like all this is just an effort to feel superior over others?
Well, I mean, listen.
Yeah, because in a capitalist society, if you didn't feel like there was someone to one up, then what's the point of existing?
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
certainly
but
not to
also-
help your
That's what it
neighbor
boils
so you
down
can
to.
both get ahead. You can't
Right.
both get ahead or help your
Yeah.
neighbor. You have to climb on their fucking shoulders and kick them down.
That's
I have a
right.
question.
This-
Do you get to a point? Do you get to a point where
white
people
men
like?
have had power forever, and they took that and they enforced it violently, and they're very upset that we're allowed to have literally any representation or power.
Yes.
They feel like that's being taken away from them because they had it for so long. People like to them. Do you people?
Jess, you broke it. You are breaking up a little bit. I don't know why that was so hard for me to get out of my mouth. I'm breaking up a
You
little
broke
bit,
up
too.
talking about
Like
her.
I'm having some sort of failure of my system at the moment.
No,
Ahmed?
so they think that they are being treated poorly because they have to treat other people like people. That's it.
Exactly.
Sarah, could you do me a favor? You said you were going to address the chat. Can you read a few things from because we have a lot of new guests in the chat, a lot of new people.
Go from back
Thank you.
to front then. So some of the comments might be related to things that we said a couple minutes
Did you say
ago.
you're going to go back to front?
Yeah.
I never wipe that way, but go ahead.
Well, you're the one with the food poisoning, so you keep that in mind. Wait, let me get to where the last place let's see. Oh, Mike had said victim blaming is the American way. If you get raped, it's what were you wearing? If you get mugged, it's why were you in that neighborhood? I fucking talk about that shit all the time. Don't get me started on rape victims because that shit infuriates me. It doesn't matter what the fuck she was wearing or not wearing. Let's see, Mahmed. The American social structure protects white patriarchal supremacy, and there is no real accountability to being racist. We don't even designate the KKK as a terrorist group, which is what it is. But Antifa was targeted by the FBI as a terrorist group. I didn't know that they weren't I didn't know that they weren't classified as a terrorist group. If I had to guess, I would say they were classified as a fucking religious group.
Dude, I would say, dude, it's incredible that we live in a country where the KKK doesn't get marked that way, but they'll mark juggalos that way.
He said systemic racism is not a failure of the system; it's an integral institution of the system. I completely agree. Where the fuck how would America look different if it wasn't built on racism? Make America Great meant, I think Rob already read that one. I like the American dream of family, house, good job, and friendly neighbors. I just don't care who my neighbors are. It was white men rule and we're superior. America is a caste system, just like India. Alexa said these old white men don't want to share power with women, black, Latinos, transgender, gay, etc. Only white males are superior. Yeah, I mean, that's fairly fucking obvious. It's like their feathers are being ruffled a little too much because it's coming from a lot of different directions, probably partially because of there being a lot more social media, than it's ever existed before. So it's, every community has a social media presence and voice, and depending on what's going on, that voice might seem very loud for a time, and that is a bother to certain types of people. And, I say it all the time, like, I feel like boomers of a certain age in politics is really ruining the future. Boomers in education is ruining the future of education. It's ruining because it's like, it has to be the way it used to be. We can't move forward, even though the fucking future looks very different than what the hell you guys think it should look like. Like, can you guys get out of the fucking way? Like, don't you have, like, I want to say, like, don't you have grandkids? Don't you give a shit that they're, but the truth is you want your grandkids to be on your fucking yacht that they inherited. Like, you don't want them to be, like, in a nicely integrated area where everyone's happy and has an equal opportunity. So, yeah, like, that's, I guess, what they're fighting for. Yeah, and Alexa said, and what exactly was Trump trying to take offline? Exactly. Any fucking social media where there were a bunch of people that were anti-Trump, like TikTok.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's one other news story going on I wanted to bring up to you guys before we transfer this conversation over to what Jessica does. And it's only because the news story is really upsetting me because I don't know what to do with it. And I don't know if I'm being ignorant because I don't know what to do with it. But did you guys read about the Dunkin' Donuts worker who punched out the 77-year-old racist and then the guy died? Did you guys hear about this?
Yeah, I saw that.
No.
And I saw all the
Okay, so a
comments.
guy, there was a
People were
77-year-old man, which they keep referring to like a poor, sad, elderly man. Which, I mean, I know 77-year-olds who could fucking outrun me. So, like, anyway, this guy went to a Dunkin' Donuts. He wasn't happy with his order, and he started fucking doling out racial slurs. And the manager, who was black, punched him, and he died. And now the manager is obviously in custody. He's in jail. He's going to court. And, you know, it's a really fucked up situation because in my mind, like, I'm all for punching racists. I don't give a shit what fucking generation you're from. I'm tired of this excuse of like, well, he's old, he doesn't know better. Fuck you, dude. If you're that old and you don't know better, then I don't know if I give a shit about you.
Here's the thing. If that guy was pissed off at the Dunkin' Donuts worker and used that because he was angry, then he did know better because he wasn't saying it like they were great friends. He was saying it out of anger to piss someone off that he was pissed off at. So he did fucking know better. He did. Yeah. He chose not to. And like, dude, I read the comments on that article and it was just like, you know, what he did was wrong, but the other guy should really learn how to control his temper. And that's all I saw over and over. And I'm like,
that's what I saw too.
Typical. Exactly. This angry black man shit all the fucking time. And like, cloak it any way you fucking want, man. You guys are so goddamn transparent.
They don't see the hurling of the racist abuse as an act of violence, which is exactly what it is.
Completely fucking agree.
You come into somebody's workplace and you start hurling racial slurs at them, you are being violent. You are invoking every memory that person has had in their entire life being racially abused or attacked for their race. You are committing an act of violence by being racist.
While simultaneously demanding that they take your fucking order, which is like, it just adds so much more fucking insult to the whole thing. My sister said if this was a white man that punched a black racist, the punishment would be different. You're fucking right, and the comments would be too. The comments would be, see, black people are racist too. Black people, that's what the fuck would be said. It wouldn't be anything about how the other person should fucking, you know, learn how to control their temper. It's so fucking twisted, man. It just makes me so goddamn angry.
It's amazing to me how racism gets repackaged. I mean, a lot of bullshit gets repackaged these days, but like racism gets repackaged as freedom of speech. And I posted a GIF image. You guys have all seen it. The GIF image of that fucking dumb little Nazi standing there with his stupid little armband, and this fucking black dude just knocks him the fuck out. And it's like the greatest, most fucking satisfying knockout you've ever seen. And I post this GIF image, and some asshole who I didn't even know is posting. He's like posting comments on it, and he's like, "Oh, imagine being a person who thinks it's okay to hit somebody over freedom of speech." And I was like, yo, imagine being somebody who doesn't understand that walking around with a swastika is an action against another people. Like, imagine being so ignorant that you don't understand that this isn't just freedom of speech. This is people actively working to oppress another people. This is a response to that. So when Jessica says that's an act of violence, I fucking completely agree with you 100%, dude.
No, if you're wearing a swastika around me, that means you want to kill my ass. So I'm not going to treat you very nicely. That is an aggressive act that you choose to do. If you come near me, you are threatening me.
Right. Yeah. It's not an opinion. It's not freedom of speech. It's you organizing to fuck over other people. Actively and openly, and you can't repackage that as freedom of speech to me. I'm not that stupid,
wear it
dude.
On your sleeve. You're proud enough. You're advertising. You're advertising that you're a threat.
You are saying, I'm the guy who believes that you should be fucked over and oppressed because of my belief structure, and I'm allowed to believe it.
Or dead.
Worse
Or
than
dead,
that.
yes.
It's an advertisement that I believe you shouldn't exist at all. And I will do whatever I can to make sure you don't fucking exist. It's way beyond it's just way beyond what you said. It's way beyond that.
It's not, oh, I'm gonna make your life suck. It's, no, if I get a chance to, I'm going to drag you down an alleyway and I'm going to torture you first and then I'm going to kill you. And I might hunt down your family too and go after them.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's an action. It's an action. To organize and wear a swastika is an action. It's not freedom of speech. It's not just a dainty opinion. It's not, I think oranges are better than apples. It's a fucking opinion. It's an action against people, and it's a call to action to other people to join you.
Yep.
Now this guy the 75-year-old who died, how extreme was he in his beliefs? Was he Nazi level, or was he just
I don't know.
Run-of-the-mill angry old man?
I don't know, but I can say this. I'm really tired of the news packaging this guy as some sweet old 77-year-old man, because we know of some dudes in their 70s who are fucking dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Donald Trump.
Exactly. I was just about to say, remember that fucking guy? My sister said someone who has the balls to wear that in public has the balls to actually do something violent to you.
Yep.
Yeah. There's never a situation where I think I could imagine myself or anyone else who's a person of color standing around a Nazi and that being a cool, casual sort of thing.
Right, you being like, well, I don't agree with your politics, but we can sure sit down and have a cup of coffee together.
Yeah,
Fuck that.
It's not even like have a good day. I see what you believe and carry on. It's like we got.
No, we need to go.
Yeah,
That's what it is. We have to go now.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I do sort of like a person lost their life over some stupid bullshit, and that sucks.
Right.
But actions have consequences. Words have consequences, and I always say this: like, you never know when you might catch the one. And unfortunately, he caught the one. That sucks, but like you said, Jess, like it's an act of violence and it's not okay. And like, it's been tolerated for far too long. And like, now people are finally starting to be like, like, no, the buck stops here.
Good.
Yeah. I think it's good that people are defending themselves and like standing up and being like, no, this is not okay. Like, you're not going to talk to me this way. You're not going to talk about who I am or my culture this way. And I think it's like part of a broader sort of conversation that we're having around race as a whole, where even things like wearing a Native American headdress during Halloween is like no longer okay, or like, dressing up in certain costumes is no longer okay. But it was never okay. No, yeah, you're right.
It was never okay. And they always said, hey, don't do this. But the white people were like, we don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, fuck you. Fuck off.
And then what they did was they took that mentality, they took those ideas and they took that mentality and they fed it to the younger generation like, this is fine. This is okay. Mm-hmm. Like Rob, we've talked a lot before about how like our generation could be so much fucking worse. We could be so much worse as people and as men if we didn't wake up to what the fuck the generation before us was feeding us. And that's that kind of shit is they fed that shit to us, because what you're talking about, Kristen, is you're talking about when I was a kid and people would go to fucking elementary school in headdresses dressed as Indians, like, and their parents just like, oh, look how nice that is. Look how nice.
Yeah. I mean, it was my generation too. And I think it's unfortunately part of the next generation's upbringing too. And I mean, I think the only difference between now and then is just that people have the internet. I think that's basically it. People are able to go online and look things up and like hear from other people who like are saying like, no, this is not okay. This was never okay.
Right.
We, like this is cultural appropriation, or this is not appropriate. This is not honoring our culture. And I think people are bringing more attention to the issues that marginalized communities face. And I think that people are becoming more aware of the impacts that like what we were taught had. Like, I think the whole like idea of cultural appropriation, I mean, to me is like such a I like watershed moment in like just culture in general, because I never ever heard growing up that like wearing a Native American headdress was okay. And like I used to think like, ooh, that's something cool that I would wear, but I never took the time out to think, okay, how is this impactful and why is it wrong for me to do this? Until I read like articles online and I started listening to people like YouTube videos of Native American people talking about like, this is not okay. Like, this is actually like very disrespectful, and something clicked in my head. And I think a lot of people my age, like millennials, had that sort of moment with the internet. And so now we're starting to have conversations that should have been had before.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that the culture itself has changed entirely, but I think that we're starting little by little now to have more of an understanding of how race plays into society, how we view race, how we view marginalized communities, the challenges that they face. So I think it's getting better, but it's not great.
Sure,
I mean, obviously
sure.
not. You still have 75-year-old men in Dunkin' Donuts getting.
But that relates to what I said earlier when I asked you guys about whether or not you thought the the police situation in this country was getting better. Because like I said, I see it in little pockets, like little communities changing, but it still needs so much work. And this is one of those same things.
Well,
Mike said Chuck Norris could still kick major ass, and he's like Biden's age. Let's put
no shit.
Alexa said, let's put the responsibility on the person who caused it. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the wording of the news articles is a little skewed towards favoring the racist old man. Mike said, is there a video of the old guy getting punched? I feel like if there was one, I would have seen it posted over and over again. I've seen the news article posted a lot, but I haven't seen any videos posted, so I'm not really sure that. I mean, it's inside of a store, which makes you think that a video has to exist, but maybe they just haven't released it. I'm not sure. I've not looked, so I cannot give you an accurate answer one way or the other.
So if you guys don't mind, I would like to transfer the conversation. It seems like a good moment to transfer the conversation over to Jessica and what Jessica does for a living. And before anybody asks questions or anything, I thought, Jessica, if you don't mind, if you would talk a little bit about what you do and who you work for and, whatever you want to say.
Okay. I am a volunteer with the Trans Doe Task Force. They are a group that tries to identify people who are found that are unidentified who are either trans or gender variant. And I also am the administrator of the LAMP database that they run, and that is for missing and murdered LGBTQ people specifically. I'm also a forensic genetic genealogist with Redgrave Research Forensic Services, and that's actually run by the same people. And they are the best, and watching now, actually. So yeah, we try and use forensic genetic genealogy to help identify people who are found dead and they don't know who they are. And the Trans Doe Task Force specifically is focusing on people who are either trans or gender variant or gender nonconforming, which is like doing forensic genealogy, but on like super duper hard mode, because trans people will face multiple ways in which their cases will be deprioritized, and a lot of them are not reported as missing because they're estranged from their biological family, and chosen families, which are very important for queer people, often cannot report their family members missing the police a lot of time won't take a report from, the girlfriend or, somebody who's a roommate, So, and then there's gaps in records, or people will be going by names that are different than are on the records. You find a lot of what's called dead naming with trans people, which is where they will have changed their identity and they will have transitioned, and the police or their biological family will still continue to call them by the name they were given at birth. You'll find misgendering a lot, and a basic lack of disrespect in how their cases are treated, and a lot of the times they're not given a lot of priority. They're not given a lot of resources to solve these cases, so they wind up getting shelved. And that's why we have some unidentified trans people whose cases go back into the 80s and probably the 70s. Not all of the unidentified people are in databases that we can have access to, but they are out there, and we actively look for them. And then contact the departments or the medical examiner's office that has them, and try and help get them identified, get them their names back, get them some justice, because a lot of them also were murdered. So it's really important work, and it's really difficult work, but it's something that I think it is the most important work that I do. I do a lot of cases just on my own, but also with them that are missing persons cases or unidentified persons cases, where I try and help and try and offer support. And I try and focus on people from marginalized communities, because no marginalized community gets a lot of support. And a lot of the time, their cases won't be shared. If they go missing and there is a report made and there is a newspaper article, people just won't share it because the person is Black.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So how many of those do you come across that end up being represented in the public, or at least in the media, or anything that covers it, as a hate crime, and not just?
A lot of the time they try and say it's not a hate crime. I would consider a lot of them hate crimes. We saw a case a couple years ago where this 17-year-old girl went missing out in Washington. Her name is Nikki Kuhnhausen, and most of the press was actually really good. Some was not great, but most of it was really good. And when they found her remains, they also found the person who killed her, and he turned around and he said, "Oh, well, I found out she was trans, so I murdered her. I freaked out and murdered her." And that was going to be his defense. She was trans, so I panicked. And Washington, to their credit, outlawed the trans panic defense the next week. But it's a hate crime. It's a hate crime. Come on now.
Do we have are we at a point, you think, in society where, I know everything gets politicized, where it's conservative and liberal, Democrat, Republican, so on and so forth, but where things have been so put to an extreme, where people are educated to a certain level, and their reactions to things, just for progression over in my opinion, the most simplistic ideals. Do you think that we're at a point where it's going to burst? People are going to react in a way that is demonstrably problematic?
Okay, so they've always reacted that way, though. It's just that none of the cishet people cared that it was happening. I mean, we let like 500,000 gay people and bisexuals and lesbians and trans people die in the 80s, and nobody gave a fuck.
Right.
Yep.
Nobody gave a single fuck. And the hate crimes in the 80s are ridiculous. And I mean, sometimes I only find mentions of them in gay newspapers because that's how little other people, you know, the cishet people cared. My friend Case told me about her friends down in Arkansas who they found them chopped up in bags in the river. They gotten kidnapped outside of a gay bar in like 1981, and her friends were found chopped up in pieces in bags in the river. There's not even any news articles about it. And I'm sure it happened, right? That's not something that you just like make up for funsies to, you know, tell at parties. That's not a fun thing to remember. That's how little people cared. So, assuming it's going to come to a head, well, it's never been good. It's never been good. We had I don't know if you guys remember this. I think it was like 2003 up in Newark. There was a little girl, Sakia Gunn, who was a lesbian, right? Some full-grown men were hitting on her while she was at the bus stop with her friends going home. And they were hitting on her, and she said, well, no, I'm a lesbian. Like, you know, leave us alone. We're lesbians. And they got out of the car, and they fucking murdered her for it. And that was in like 2003. Like, you know, like.
That might as well be yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, it's not.
I find it incredibly ironic that an entire society, and I go back to the lack of knowledge that people have about people, is that homosexuality, polygamy, the transsexual community, I mean, this has existed for a very long time. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. I mean, sexuality is fluid and always has been. If you look at the history of it, encouraged in most cases, accepted by society, understood, and then it wasn't. And it
That's right. That's right.
So much as a historian to know that when I teach antiquity, which is my background, I love ancient history. I've studied ancient history for so long that homosexuality and integrative sexuality, and that there weren't those ties. Some of it was taboo. Some of it was interpreted by other groups of people, but it wasn't targeted. People didn't, you know, I think the funniest representation of that is that people love the movie 300, right? They love the masculinity of Gerard Butler. And I focus on this in my classes. Like,
don't tell them about the Spartans, though.
But right. So
that's exactly right.
Right? These hard ass airbrushed motherfuckers are out here fighting, and they are kicking ass, and they're fucking doing damage. This misogynistic patriarchal male who runs Sparta. Well, it sold, and that graphic novel made millions of dollars. And I use that in my class to teach antiquity and go, you know what? I just want to let you know, a majority of those dudes you see in this movie, they're sleeping together. It was encouraged in their society to have
Vikings too, right?
Yeah, homosexual relationships, man. You built up a mental connection and a physical connection with those people. And when they died, which is represented in 300, nobody picks it up. People get killed and people lose their minds because that's the person that they love. They encouraged it. Alexander's empire all that shit. Homosexuality, transsexuality didn't matter. It wasn't a thing. It was encouraged. And we're at a point in time where all of that kind of shit, everybody's roots are there in that. They're there in that. And to look at modern day and see people rip themselves apart over simplistic fucking issues like who gives a shit? It's not your life. It's not somebody that you are affected by. I don't get it. And that's not liberalism. That's just humanity. Fuck you. Just fuck you.
A lot of people think that they have the right to enforce what they think needs to happen, how you need to exist on other people. And when you don't do that, they feel like they have the right to make your life completely miserable. And it's every single point in your life. You see the anti-trans bills that they're trying to go through now in a bunch of states, and they're targeted at children, right? And they're like, well, we're trying to help those children. But no, you're not. The kids are coming forward and they're saying, this is going to hurt me. And you're like, be quiet, kid. You don't know what you're talking about, right? And
the tone was great.
That's what it is, though. It's, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And then when the trans adults come in and go, no, that's right, they're like, you don't know what you're talking about either. Oh, but you do.
And I revert to 10th grade understanding of shit. History, politics, life, sociology, doesn't fucking matter. People
I know what
just
you mean.
Stop learning. They stopped learning.
They stopped learning. That's right, dude.
Alexis said, forget about understanding all these groups. What about compassion and respect for all living creatures? And I was recently, I don't know if you're familiar with the actress Busy Phillips. She's from a whole bunch of shit, but her kid, I think, recently told her, like, I want to go by they, them and stuff. And she had said, Busy had said, my mother is of an older generation and she doesn't really understand exactly what's going on with my kid. And I told my mom, you don't have to understand. It's okay if you don't. Just love them. And I think that was like a really powerful statement, because like, it's okay to not get it. It's okay to say, well, they're thinking things that like I just don't fucking get. But like, why does that have to translate to like, fuck you, you don't deserve rights, and if you die, I don't want to hear about it, and the news shouldn't bother reporting you, and all the like, why does humanity have to require that you understand that person's motivations? And I don't even understand what's so hard to get. If someone says, this is who I love, or this is who I am, that's enough information for you to understand it if you're open-minded enough to be willing to understand something. If you're willing to accept the information coming in, then you've got all the information you need already. So, once again, it just comes down to these people are less than, and these people deserve more. And I'm in the group that deserves more, and fuck everyone else. And, it's just fucking disheartening.
That's a lot. I feel like a lot of that is institutionalized, though. Like the way that we understand gender.
100%.
The way that things are marketed, even towards children.
Oh man, that shit with first of all, like toys for kids. Yeah. The way, like YouTube has like these like 3-hour-long video compendiums of 80s commercials. And like sometimes we put them on in the background while we're doing shit. And I'm always like, look at the fucking toy commercials that they have for boys and girls. Are you fucking serious with this shit? All the boy commercials are like fucking warplanes and helicopters and like fucking violence and shit. And then the girls, it's like, oh, look, it's a lactating baby doll. And it's like, oh, well, let's just gear her up for a future of making babies. And look, it's a toy oven. So she'll learn how to get used to that kitchen early. Like, dude, it's fucking twisted. And the same goes for my feelings on this, the complete and open and willingness to sexualize children in this country is so fucking sickening to me. And it follows the same thing of like, when you are able to sexualize a little girl and put her in fucking pageants when she's 5 in a bikini contest, then it makes a little more sense why those same people that are getting raped are being blamed for it. Like, there's like a pattern here of things. Like, it's easy to see the pattern once you're willing to see it, you know, like.
But it's everywhere too, though. All right, like my kids go to Howell here, and my eldest was going into kindergarten, and it was hot, because summer is a thing that exists, and so the girls were wearing tank tops, and we got letters home from the school saying we can't let them wear tank tops to school, you see. And I said, my daughter is 5. Besides the fact that I don't give a shit and my daughter has the right to be comfortable. Anyway, my daughter is 5. If your argument is that her showing her shoulders is going to be distracting, whoever the fuck is distracted by my 5-year-old shoulders needs to get the fuck out of the school.
Exactly. First of all, who is sexualizing your child by doing that in the first fucking place? And secondly, I don't think I've ever in my entire life heard of a little boy being sent home for wearing a tank top.
Nope.
Ever. Not once. Ever. It's some Brooke in the comments said, that's what we told a lady in our book club about her kid and what to tell her parents. It doesn't matter that Jake is Jane. You love your grandkid. Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Being different in society is seen as unequal in society. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, I have a question.
Okay.
Do you think, this is something I've been thinking about recently, do you think enough is being done in return in terms of police reform to include more resources towards the trans or genderqueer community?
Well, she's almost, her group is like all of it. When she said she was one of the only groups on the entire planet, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That's all there is just like one fucking little group of people?
It kind of is.
Yeah. I'm just curious with all these conversations going around now about like police reform and police budgets. Do you think... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what happens when police departments get defunded and things like that is actually all of the programs that deal with like missing persons cases and unidentified persons cases. Those are the first ones that get cut, along with mental health services and things like that. All of those nice community things that everybody needs at some point, or people will need them. Those are the things that get cut. So if you're already dealing with a problem of cases being deprioritized, which ones do you think are going to get the very limited or non-existent resources? Is it going to be the middle-aged, middle-class white lady that went missing, or is it going to be the trans person that went missing? Like, that is the reality, and we are working to fix that. It's difficult because some departments have some really entrenched bigotry. We are seeing changes. It's slow.
Yeah.
But we are seeing changes and more understanding around, what kind of cases get deprioritized, why they get deprioritized, what are the stumbling blocks there, and how do we address that? That's actually something that we are working on, but also we're seeing response to that, which is really nice.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if you're familiar, and I'm not sure if you are, with the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, Two-Spirit.
Yes.
They have really, really been pushing for decades to get it addressed, and not just in the U.S. but also in Canada. And the Canadian Indigenous women really have done an immense amount of work to get it recognized. What exactly is happening. So there's a lot of reasons why Native cases will have problems, and one of the problems is having to go through tribal governments, and then also the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and then maybe some other local jurisdiction, and maybe they don't get listed at all.
Yeah.
They have just decades and decades of that.
Yeah.
And they go missing at a horrendous rate in comparison to the number of them that are in the population. I think I saw a thing that said 85% of Native women will face sexual assault in their life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 10 times higher than with white people.
Yeah.
And it's alarming. But I think that there have been some really good steps to try and address that specifically. But also, like I said, we are starting to see people start recognizing that, you know, there are special parts of specifically trans and gender variant individuals, if they go missing or if they're found unidentified, that are currently not served at all by any of the systems that are in place right now. Yeah. And trying to cobble around a workaround for that, it's going to need an actual solution. You can't just keep cobbling things around and expect it to go well. You're going to see a lot of problems from that. But even getting people to recognize that it's a problem to begin with has been really great, because that was not the case before.
Yeah.
At all.
There's been a lot of like stuff coming up, well, in like the past year with COVID and people being at home, there's been a like really big uptick in gender. It's like a lot of femicide. Like I know like Puerto Rico had to go into a state of emergency because people were being, women were being killed. Do you think, because I know with gender-based violence, personally, I think that a lot of the cisgendered cases take the big bulk of the attention. Not enough attention is drawn to trans cases or genderqueer cases where people are murdered, and it's kind of lumped into the same category. Do you think that that's problematic, or do you think it's beneficial because it might draw more attention to those cases? So I guess like my question being like, do you think when people use the term gender-based violence, should they be using that term when it comes to people who are trans or gender variant, or would it be beneficial to have a different sort of category for that, like a hate crime? Because a lot of people, I think, when they hear that a trans woman or a trans man is murdered, they don't necessarily jump to hate crime. Like a lot of people, at least that I know, say it's like gender-based violence, almost kind of lumping it in the same category as domestic violence, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think gender-based violence is part of it. Mm-hmm. But the way that interacts with them being trans, it's like intersecting problems there. Mm-hmm. So part of it is gender-based, and part of it will be bigotry. A lot of the time, trans women are not treated as if they were women, and trans men are not treated as if they were men. So there's misogyny that both groups of people and non-binary people as well face. There's an entire term that's trans misogyny, and it can be aimed at any trans person. It's complex because trans women and trans men and non-binary people do not face all the same stuff. Mm-hmm. For their particular identities, but they will face a lot of the same discrimination because of trans. So yes, and also it's not just like a simple topic, right? Like none of these topics are really simple, but it's not just like you can just say, oh no, it's this.
Mm-hmm.
I assume when I see a trans person who has some kind of inexplicable murder, right, where they don't give a lot of details, I assume that if they're murdered, there's probably a good chance that it was a hate crime.
Yeah.
I think I've seen five trans women get murdered this past week and a half in the U.S., which is a lot. It's more than normal, and one of them was a robbery gone wrong. We know that one was a robbery gone wrong, and they already caught the people. And I think the other three of the other ones are being seriously investigated, and it looks like there's going to be some movement on the cases pretty quickly, which is good. And one, we don't know what's going on because the family insists that they're not trans, and the department insists that they're not trans. But she was a trans woman. We have pictures of her. We talked to people in the community. There are a bunch of groups that actually track trans murders and trans deaths. One of them is the TDOR site, and that's stands for the Trans Day of Remembrance, and they track all of the trans deaths all over the world every year. And one of the other groups in the U.S. is a news organization. It's called Planet Trans, and the woman that runs that is absolutely amazing, and she has been on the case where they refuse to acknowledge that Tiffany Thomas is trans at all. And she's been on that and really not letting go at all. And I appreciate that so much because it's bad enough that you are out there and you're murdered, but then you die and everybody is disrespecting you. They're not using your name. They're misgendering you. They refuse to even acknowledge that you exist. What the fuck is that?
How often how often is it that you deal with specifically seeing that it's the family that is hindering the case by insisting they're not trans, they're not this, that's not their boyfriend, that's not their girlfriend? Like, is that too common?
It's really common. It's very common, especially with kids' cases. It's very common with kids' cases. When trans kids go missing, it is always a real struggle because if I say something about them, I have to sit there and I have to think, am I putting this kid in danger? Is the family going to cause a problem here? And is this child running for a reason? Because a lot of the time they are. So if I am putting out a kid's case where they're trans or gender nonconforming, I really am usually thinking like, okay, if we put this out to the community, they can keep an eye out for them because trans children are extraordinarily vulnerable. We know that there's a chance that they might not be found alive, and then who's looking for them? We're looking for them, but like, who else is looking for them? Who else is gonna know that they need to look for them? Are the agencies or the missing persons groups in the local area aware that this is a child that exists and might need to be checked against the the remains that you just found. But it's always a really big struggle because a lot of the time you see the family is just not supportive at all, and the kid is running for a reason. And it's always really, really nice when you find the family is super supportive. That's always really surprising and so refreshing and nice, and just so nice to see. But it does not happen as often as it really should, which should be every time. And that's also with adults. It's not just with the kids. But lately we've actually seen quite a few of the trans people that are getting reported as missing, where their biological family members are out there and championing their cases and stuff. We've got Paul Del Mundo, who went missing at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. Her family they are the sweetest people I've ever met in my entire life, and they make me cry every time they post because they love Paula so much and they just want her back, and they've never been anything but sweet and accepting, and they don't let anybody say a bad word about her. And it's so nice. Everybody should have parents and siblings and friends that are like that. Like, that's how every case should be. You
Absolutely. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So somebody in the chat brought up something, and they said that what they said was, question and jest, the conversation about trans athletes in sports becoming a front and center confrontation within culture. What do you believe is the considerate and educated approach to the debate? And this is something that I wanted to bring up, but it's one of those things that I almost feel ignorant bringing it up. Because I don't, the truth is, and it just hit me now, I don't know how the trans community even feels about the debate or the argument because nobody asks.
Well, I mean, they're talking about it, it's just that nobody listens.
Right, and that's why I want to ask, because I want to go, what is the response? What is the educated response to that question? Because they keep bringing it up.
And let them play sports.
Right.
Leave them alone and let them play sports on the gender that they're presenting as. That's it. You don't need to know what's in somebody's pants.
I have only one suggestion. Don't pass laws that allow for creepy people to investigate your kids' genitals. That's a good fucking start.
Yes.
Hear that, Florida?
The entire debate is because it's literally not any different than the bathroom debate, right? They want trans people to not exist in any public space, and they want to do enough damage and pass laws to make it so that they can't exist in public spaces. They want trans people not to exist. This is not actually a debate. This is people who want trans people to not be able to exist.
And I want to tell you,
trans people.
I want to tell you how ignorant that even I've been in this debate, because Sarah and I talked about this the other day, and I was like, well, what about MMA? Right? If you take something like MMA, right, the idea is that men are biologically, stronger than women. But the truth is they have weight classes for that kind of thing, and I don't think any of that is actually true or real now. Because I thought about it, and I was like, well, if two people weigh the same amount, and they're training the same, I don't get it. And it hit me that, you're not going to see a guy like Brock Lesnar find a weight class for him. The problem is that I hear this come up.
Didn't people go and wrestle against China? They claimed that she was trans, but China was not trans.
Correct.
China was a cis woman.
Right.
Yeah, she fucking was. I was so sick of hearing that.
And she wrestled the fucking men, and they had to stop having her wrestle the men because it upset the fans.
So
I didn't know that.
So for me, it's like the biggest part of this debate that comes up is always about sports, and it's always about high contact combat sports.
It's all bullshit.
Okay.
It's all bullshit. It's just as bullshit as telling people they can't go to the bathroom. You know, people will assault trans people,
Yes.
or people who are gender nonconforming or they think are just gender nonconforming for going to the fucking bathroom. A bunch of the trans people that I know restrict their water intake and plan out their routes knowing where it's safe to go to the fucking bathroom. Do any of you have to do that shit?
Nope.
Right.
Wondering, I mean, Sarah, might be because of accessibility issues, but not because you're afraid someone's going to assault you for attempting to pee.
In fact, you and I talked the other day, and I had said the only reason I'm against trans people using whatever bathroom they want is because I'm afraid for them. Not because I'm afraid for anybody else, because I know that large groups of men who look like me are the most dangerous fucking people in the world, dude.
Yeah. But let's not pretend like cis women don't go ahead and assault trans women in the bathroom all the time, because that absolutely fucking happens. They also assault butch dykes that go to the bathroom, or people like me with the short fucking haircut that go into the bathroom, and they will assault them because they're like, oh, let me see what's in your pants. And I'm going to tell you, if you ask me what's in my pants, you're getting stuffed into a garbage can, all right? But trans people are so much nicer than I am. They just want to use the fucking bathroom. They just want to use the bathroom. They don't want to have to fight to exist constantly. They just want to take a piss.
So in the chat, someone said that. So they say that a male has an edge going into a female sport. She didn't say that as a fact. She said it as that's something that's always brought up. That's how I took it.
All right. So when you start taking female hormones, right, you lose body mass and you lose whatever edge you have really fucking fast.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny how that's never brought up.
No, they don't know anything about it. They don't want to hear it. And if you do start bringing it up, you get attacked by.
I find that statement very intriguing, right? Because like no one ever talks about if you're taking.
Oh, I talk about it all the time.
If you're taking mass amounts of estrogen, we usually adopt, the athletic community taking testosterone to get very big and very, very athletic. But no one ever talks about that transitional period of if you can see a transition between someone who's a normal sized average person who takes steroids, they can jump in 30 days to somebody who is a fucking monster. So people associate transition to something that takes light years. Right. And that's not quite the fact, right? Like the hormones hit you.
So it's not even that. A lot of the trans kids that will be actually having access to hormones, which are horrendously gatekept, by the way, like all trans healthcare, will also go on blockers to stop their body from producing the levels of testosterone they were on before, so that they can develop as a woman, because they're a woman. And it's the opposite with testosterone. So the people that are making comments on this mostly don't have any understanding of the situation. They're just being transphobic.
Sure. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
But having the knowledge won't necessarily change them being transphobic, because a lot of the time when you explain things to them, they're like, well, I still don't like it.
But hold on. I'll tell you what it will do. What it will do is it will arm someone like me so I can more intelligently address that when it comes up.
Alexis asked an interesting question that I actually have no idea. I don't watch sports. I don't care about sports really. So I don't know anything about the rules regarding most sports. But she said, in sports, you can't take hormones or you'll be disqualified. I assume she means steroids. So what does a transgender person do? Are all hormones not allowed, or all steroid, like what isn't
No.
allowed. I have no idea what isn't allowed.
Steroids aren't allowed, but if you're taking, regular levels of hormones, then you're going to have normal levels of hormones.
Yeah, I have no idea what's allowed in fucking sports. I think sports is stupid. Yeah, so I play chess, and that's basically all the sports I watch.
Can I just...
The entire debate, all right, is whether or not trans people should be able to exist in public spaces. And the reason why they're going after trans people now is because they recognize that they lost against the gays. And the gays, they can't... No, that's really...
It's true, though. Yeah.
They moved all those same arguments over to trans people now. And they are going after them because they think they are the most vulnerable and no one will stand up for them. And that's it.
And in a lot of ways, that's true. I mean, otherwise that fucking horrific bill in Florida would never have passed. That made me sick. I remember when I read about it, I looked at Rick and I'm like, I am so fucking angry. This is the most disgusting shit. How could anybody be okay with allowing for anyone to look at a kid's genitals for any fucking reason other than that they were abused or they were attacked or that they have a medical problem? Like, what the fuck is going on? That people listen to the wording of that. They had to sit there and listen to that bill. Someone had to read it and they were like, yeah, this all checks out. Like, what the fuck?
Can I just tell you how fucking amazingly the world... My buddy Scott Fastneck in the chat just said, I'm sorry I'm tuning in late. The whole trans community is definitely misunderstood by masses, which is fucked up. And I'm sorry they've got to go through all this shit. And let me just tell you, my friend Scott is a giant soldier. And he is like one of the most amazing people I've ever fucking met. And he just said that. So, and I also want to say to you, Jess, that like the amount of times I've seen you in the chat, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. How amazing that is. I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what amazes me when you look at a lot of the bills that are being passed or they're attempting to pass is that they make specific cutouts for intersex children to still be able to mutilate their genitals at birth, but they are completely keeping out any trans healthcare. So they still want to be able to harm gender nonconforming people, but they're very, very specific and targeted in the way that they're going to harm them. And they're going after people that literally can't stop it. Like if you're doing surgery on needless surgery on an infant's genitals, okay, then that baby can't consent to anything.
Oh boy, we're getting into the circumcision talk, and this shit gets.
I was not actually gonna go there. I was not gonna go there. I was gonna keep it just on intersex kids.
I used to argue it, and Sarah fucking told me the realities of it, and I went, "Oh shit, I've been wrong. I've been wrong about my own dick."
Don't even fucking get me started on circumcision. I'll tell you right the fuck now how fucked up that shit is.
Yes.
Listen, circumcision is not wrong if you're an adult and you decide I want to be circumcised, okay? Then cool. But like take a baby, give them a needless fucking surgery where shit goes wrong left and right, and just because it's aesthetically fucking pleasing to you? How creepy is that shit?
Can I also say that Anthony in the chat said, if you are on hormones and supervised by a doctor, you will be within the acceptable range of hormonal levels for sports community too.
Yes, and Anthony knows.
That is such an important point.
Yep.
This is the stuff that people don't think about because it's the stuff that it's the stuff that everyone leaves out of the main story that gets funneled to everybody. Like, this is the stuff that gets left out.
But I mean, trans people are always saying this. It's just that people don't listen to them. They literally are screaming this all the time, and people just don't listen to them. They don't accept that they're reliable narrators of their own reality. Well, just on a fundamental level. They don't think that they will know what their identity is, and they will gatekeep every step of any kind of transition. And if you're not transitioning in the way that the doctors think that you're supposed to, well, guess what? They're going to gatekeep that too. And if you don't behave the way that they think you should behave, well, then maybe the doctor's just not going to write a script for your hormones for a while until you start behaving properly. The stories that I see and things that I hear from my trans friends all over the place are absolutely fucking horrific. And if cis people had to go through this shit on a regular basis, they would burn the fucking place to the ground.
Right.
That's why I said that trans people are much nicer than me, because I would burn a place to the fucking ground. I have no patience for that shit.
I have so much respect for you.
But if they if they act angry, then they're disproportionately punished for being angry that they're not treated properly.
They're treated like they're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, oh look, they don't know who they are, and also they're crazy. They're acting mad. And
no,
yeah,
look,
I know.
Look, right. They're violent.
That's right. That's right.
Damn.
You
know, look at them out of control and violent. Well, listen, if you had to deal with even 1% of this shit, you would be fucking angry all the time. You would be angry all the time, and it would never fucking stop being a thing that you're angry about. But you're fine with perpetrating this on people and making them sit there and smile and thank you for just not being a fucking asshole to their face. Like,
I don't understand why people aren't just genuinely more interested in one another in a positive way. Like, oh, who are you? Like, oh, what do you think? Like, oh, that's cool. Like, I just don't get why people are such shit
assholes
to one another. Yes, exactly. Shit to one another. I just don't get it.
The other day when we were talking, you were talking about how a lot of the time, well, I don't know about a lot, but that there are times when you're working on cases where you have to look at crime scene photos and things like that, or also you have to obviously read descriptions of things that happened to the people that whose bodies have been found. Yeah. And when you were talking about
actual pictures and stuff,
and when you were talking about that, what was going through my head was basically how, I don't even know how to ask it, but I was just thinking of what an incredible weight that has to be, especially for someone who is, you know, clearly very compassionate, clearly like feels this pain, you know, for these people that you're working, whose cases you're working on. Like, it's an incredible weight to have to carry those images in your head and those descriptions in your mind. And I guess my original question that I almost asked you the other night was, how do you deal with that? Which I'm not even sure is really worded the right way. I'm sure that finding people alive makes it worth it, but must be an incredible amount of stress just knowing, like, there's a difference between knowing the ugly in the world and literally seeing photos of how ugly it can be. And I just imagine it's really haunting. And how do you carry on with that? I know you talked about burnout being a thing that occurs for people. I imagine you and your entire team has to have some level of almost, I don't know if trauma is the right word, but I don't know a better word for it. Just trauma of having to see these things, but you have to see them because it's your job.
So it winds up being like a really complex thing emotionally, and because the whole time that you're working a case, or you're looking at a case, or you're just, you know, trying to get somebody's name back or anything else. For us, we tend to look at the people that we're working on as our family. We like adopt them as our family, and we try and take care of them as if that was our own family member. because, they don't have anybody else right now. And then, when we can get them back to the people that knew them in life and loved them like that, that is a great feeling. And it's like you're giving them the worst news, but also it's good news too, because now you know where they are and what happened. They can be treated with respect. We hold space for them. When we solved the Delta Dawn case last year, that little girl in Mississippi that got thrown off a bridge in the early 80s, and we identified her, and then we had a teen vigil, and some people create like artwork, and some people cook, and some people do other things for stress relief, but we also try and do like a lot of emotional support with it, because it's hard. But it's not, it's really complex, because like not all of it is feeling bad, right? Like if I'm looking at those pictures and stuff, or if I am finding out what happened, or like, studying the case information so I can figure out what happened, I'm doing that with a very specific purpose in mind. And for me at least, I don't find that to be personally traumatic, because I'm doing it with a purpose. But when we solve stuff, everything kind of hits for a little while all at once, and you kind of like take everything in, and then you have to deal with it. But like, I don't focus on that at all while we're working on it, because you're focused on the work, because that's what's gonna help the situation, and that is what is important. Sometimes, it sneaks up on you later too. When you felt like you dealt with it, sometimes it just sneaks up on you later, and all of a sudden you're having a problem. But I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and Lee and Anthony and a bunch of the other people on the team been doing this for a little while. They've also been doing it for years now, and you learn how the best way for you. But I mean, also all of us have the pictures of the cases that we've helped with, like in our house. So, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it can get really stressful, but like, it's so important to get people there, get people identified and get them back. It's so important for the people that are still left behind. And it's so important, for the community. A lot of the time, they'll mourn, and they'll appreciate that there were people that cared, that went ahead and were involved with the case, and tried to help them, even though they didn't know who they were. I mean, I came through this and started doing this stuff because my grandmother's youngest brother went missing, and we couldn't find him. We couldn't find him for 9.5 years.
Wow.
So I was looking at does for a reason, and a lot of the people that are doing the missing persons work or looking at unidentified people, a lot of them do have some connection to that kind of a case where somebody's been missing for a long time, and they just, you learn how to do it, and then you're like, oh, hey, well, this is something I can do to help other people so they don't have to go through it. And some people come from other situations where they just, I don't know, something clicks with them, and they're like, wait a minute, I can really help with this stuff, and I'm good at it. So, this is what I'm going to do. So you get people from like all backgrounds and walks of life, and we all do deal with it differently, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's hard, but it's like there's no way to get through it that's not going to be hard, though. Look at the stuff that we're dealing with, where there's just not any way that there's no way that this is going to be a happy ending ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're giving dignity to people who otherwise have not had it, even in death. Like, I think, like, that's tremendously necessary. Yeah.
And especially because we really do try and focus on deprioritized communities, marginalized communities. Those are the case, like me specifically, those are the cases I want. Those, because they are harder, they take longer, they're way less likely to get the resources, and that means that their marginalization is going to continue. And that is just a situation that it does not sit right with me at all. Not in a tiny bit to already have had an issue where you are found deceased and they don't know who you are, right? And then to also have it so they're like, oh, well, you're Black, or you were probably a sex worker, so you're just going to sit there on a shelf forever, and nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to look for you. Well, you know what? That's bullshit. Like, and that could have been that person who was found and whose case is deprioritized, could be me or any of my friends or any of the people from my community. All the people that I love could end up like that, right? And then who's going to look for me if I go missing? Who's gonna try and identify me if I'm found? And when you look at that and you're like, well, there's not really anybody, is there? Right? Like, that's fucked up. You can't have situations like that.
There's an alarming message that I think that especially for like sex workers, for a lot of communities, I think that knowing that they would not be a priority if anything happened to them is a really unsafe feeling to exist in a world like that. To know that, hey, you know what? If anything happened to me, no one would even fucking know it. Like, that is, I mean, you might as well just be walking around with a fucking target for any person that happens to just be a piece of shit in any number of fucking ways.
And historically and presently, that is exactly what has happened.
Yeah. And like, that's, I don't think people even really think of that side of it. Is like, what is the message that working, treating cases this way, what is the message that sends to the fucking world? Well, it shows that there's certain groups that are easier to target.
Yeah, no, and that's it. It is known that most cases of white people will be easier to solve with forensic genetic genealogy. White genealogy, unless there's a lot of like intermarrying within the same family, is gonna be easier than just about anybody else. They have higher numbers of testers in the databases that let law enforcement see the matches, the genetic matches too. And you won't come across problems with records like you do with Black people who's, at some point they're just enumerated. They don't have names anymore because of slavery. Their entire identities are erased. So there are a lot of cases of minorities where it will be really expensive for most forensic genetic genealogy companies because they will charge by the hour. They will take a very long time and an enormous amount of work, and there's a good chance that a lot of them are not high priority anyway because they're already minorities. So what I personally am seeing when I look in the unidentified persons databases is it's getting blacker and browner as a bunch of the easier to solve white people cases are getting solved first. And I'm hoping to see that change. The cases are really hard. So if I said matches, there are different levels of matches. So you have a unit measure called centimorgans that tells you how much genetic data you share with other people, right? So if you have a different relationship, you will have, like, if it's your parent, you'll have more than if it's your second cousin, right? And there are calculators out there, so we don't have to do complex math. That can tell us, statistically what relationship these different people that come up as matches to our forensic sample will be. And with white people, you'll get second cousins regularly. It's not very usual to get very low matches with a white person unless they are a recent immigrant. But with Black cases, you routinely see people who have matches that are like further away than like fifth cousin. And then if you're trying to build the family tree back, which, can be possible, the place that you're looking for them to meet up with the line that you're looking for might be back during slavery or even past it. And then your chances of actually being able to figure out, it's like a puzzle with pieces of people, right? So being able to try and figure that out is going to be difficult or impossible because those records might not even exist. So yeah, it is a thing I feel really, really strongly about, that people should not be re-victimized after they're dead. It's bad enough that they're being victimized in life, but they should not be treated as lesser when they are dead. So hopefully working to try and fix that where we can, because knowing that this happens means that we can work to fix it. And also because we know how the systems work and everything else, we know exactly what can be fixed and what needs to be fixed in order to make the changes to make things better.
I wanted to say that Brooke said upload to Ged Match.
Yeah, Ged Match, and opt in. If you have an ancestry test done, or 23andMe or Family Tree DNA or anything like that, MyHeritage, I think, you can download your genetic data and you can go ahead and you can put it on Ged Match for free, and then just let the police. You have to opt in for police searching, and you will be helping identify people who don't have their names, but also you might be helping with people who are adopted. A lot of people who are searching on there are looking for their birth families. But you don't need to be opted in for people to find you for adoption purposes. But yeah, if you opt in on Ged Match is free. You just go and you upload it, and then you'll be helping people like me be able to find the names of people who might have been sitting out there for decades. The case that I talked about before with Alicia, she would be our age, Sarah. She was born right around the same time we were.
Well,
and she was unidentified until last year.
Amazing.
So, like, really old cases. One of the cases that Lee and Anthony solved when they were volunteers with the DNA Doe Project, I think was like 115 years old.
Wow. Amazing that was even solvable after that long.
Oh, they're wizards.
What is the process like? Let's say that you're as sure as you possibly can be, you and your whole team, that you were able to identify someone, that you're really sure that you have done it. What is the process like after that? Who are you calling first? Are you calling the police? Are you calling?
Oh, yeah. And we don't call the family or anything like that. That's don't do that. No, the department will be the people that we're working for, and we'll contact them. Anthony and Lee will usually write up a report explaining everything and why we think this person is a match and with what level of certainty we think that is. And then also, here's how you can confirm it.
And then how involved do they allow you to be in what comes next? Do the police come back to you and say, yes, it was a match? Yes, we told the family. Is there ever any interaction? Does the family ever get to find out that people outside of the police department were the ones that actually did the work that led to finding their family? Do they even know you exist?
It depends on the department. The cases that I've been on, I know that the one family is aware of us. We actually sent them letters after the announcement. They were aware that we existed anyway, but we sent them letters, and they're aware of us. The other case we were involved in was a perpetrator case up in Canada for the murder of an 8-year-old from the 80s, and we found out who murdered her. And I don't know if the family up there is aware of us. They probably are, but that's like, I wouldn't contact them directly. I would not contact any family directly with something like that. If they are aware of us and they want to contact us, I think that's fine. But it's, I don't know, it's a very weird situation. So I was involved in solving 2 cases before I started doing the forensic genealogy, just by matching things in databases. And in the one I posted, and I contacted the coroner, but I didn't contact the family. The son of the missing man went ahead and contacted me after he was identified. And the other one, I was trying to get clarification on a missing persons case, and realized that the remains that were found, that were right there in the same area, were probably this kid. That was Dylan Bright up in New Jersey. And I was actually talking to his whole family already and a bunch of his friends, because he was missing, but he wasn't listed as missing anywhere because he was on parole. The family reported him as missing, and they didn't list him because they thought he had run. So they didn't put him in any missing persons database, even though he had been listed as missing. And so when they found his body, there wasn't any indication that it might be this kid, because they thought that he had run.
Wow.
So, but after the identification, I did not do a lot of contacting with them. Like, it's really hard, right? And then, like, I helped get them some really terrible information, and it's real difficult. But like, if family wants to contact us, we're not going to discourage that. And it's not really up to us whether or not the department tells the family. But a lot of times we'll put out press releases, and sometimes family just finds us themselves.
I want to say that Anthony said in the chat, help. I just wanted to say this. Help. Sarah, can you mute?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot about the muting.
help.fg4le.com for instructions on how to do this.
Yes. Anthony does the training course that trains everybody, because he is a wizard, but also he's a very good teacher. And he trains everybody who does this. Anybody can do forensic genealogy, I think, if you can build a family tree. And if you want to get trained, that's exactly where you can go. But you guys should also probably talk to Lee and Anthony and get them on here sometime, because they're very fun and you would have a great conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Anybody else on the show right now have any burning questions you would like to ask?
I have one.
Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Related to what you were talking about before with people being reported as missing. I know a lot of times when teenagers go missing, the police put them down as like runaways.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more of an issue if the teenager or the child is trans, would you say? Or is it like the same situation? Or I guess maybe in your experience, like, I guess my question is, do you think the police will write off a missing trans, youth as like a runaway more often than they would a cis youth or teenager?
I don't know that they would classify them as a runaway more often. I don't think, because I think that they classify most teenagers as runaways.
Yeah.
Regardless of the situation, the only time I think I ever see teenagers not being listed as runaways are when they obviously have been taken away by violence, or if they have a medical condition that is serious enough that it's considered an issue, because they don't always consider, you having your medication or not an issue. But some people who have certain disabilities, they will automatically classify as endangered instead of as a runaway. I think that actually has more of a bearing on it than being trans, because I think that they just standard say that most teens are runaways. There's other issues that happen with trans teen cases, specifically, especially when you have to deal with literally every missing persons organization out there who will dead name them and misgender them and put up pictures of them that are pre-transition, which is not helpful. Like, that actively hurts your chances of finding these kids at all or safely. And not only that, you could be exposing them to transphobic violence if somebody sees one of these things and goes, hey, wait a minute, this is the same person, except, oh, they're trans, right? So now you've got a trans kid that's out there by themselves, who has no protection. No one knows where they are. And they're also more vulnerable to being attacked because you've put this information out here in this way. And it's all of the organizations. Not all of it is because of the parents, because I've even seen cases where supportive parents have come into contact with these organizations and have had to dead name and misgender their child, despite, and I know for a fact because I've seen the parents' own personal flyers that they made where they got everything right.
Yeah.
And then they contact these organizations and you look at the flyer and you're like, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
Right.
Ooh, go ahead, Sarah. I'm sorry.
You kind of touched on it sort of in passing earlier, where you talked about how, you know, when bodies haven't been found, and we're talking specifically about someone who is just missing at that point in time, and they're either a child or a teenager, and you know, you had sort of said, you know, if they ran away, a lot of times there's a good reason why they ran away. I imagine that it's a really touchy thing if you sort of dig into a person's life in order to figure out what happened to them, and you come across a situation where you're like, oh, this is exactly why they might have run away. Or you are able to see, like, this is a violent household. How do you deal with the fact that if you find that person, you know, are you delivering them to a violent household? Are you like, what is the process in that situation? Because I imagine that has to be a really fucked up thing to have to face, you know?
I will not, I won't. I will tell people in the area, in the community, keep an eye out for them, but I won't do that. No. Nope.
Yeah.
I really want people to be found, but that person is not missing.
Yeah.
If I can find you that easily, you are not missing. If you ran away and I look at like the conversations that your family's having around you and it's bad, I'll put the information out there and I'll keep an eye out to make sure that you're okay when I come in, you know, come by and check cases. I'm not going to do that because I could be getting that kid killed, and I won't do that. No.
Yeah.
It is very touchy, but I'm not going to turn in that information just because I know where they are. That's not the point. The point is making sure that they're okay,
Exactly,
right? If somebody's missing, if you're missing, part of the problem is people don't know what happened. People, you know, they say adults are allowed to go missing. If you're an adult that's listed as a missing person, you can contact the police yourself and you can say, I am not missing, I'm fine, here's my information, and they will take you off the list because adults are allowed to go missing and they do not have any right to contact your family except to say they have been located. They can't tell your family or whoever called for you where you are.
Do you, in a lot of in the cases where there is a body, where there has been a murder, and that you were able to find out what happened, or who was the perpetrator, I mean, is a large portion of that tied to a family member in the end? Do you find that there are a lot of cases where it was a family member who ended up being the perpetrator?
That has not been the case with the cases that we've dealt with.
Okay. Yeah.
As far as I know, there are some where we don't know. There's other work that happens that we are not involved with and are not necessarily privy to.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that it happens. It has not been what we've seen in the cases that we've been dealing with. Personally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, of course it happens. It happens for everything. I just wondered kind of what the percentage was that you sort of saw in your own work. I imagine that this work just overall just is so heavy for a person. It's one thing to hear about the ugly side of society, but you have to be face to face with it in order to get anything done. And that's like a whole other look at the world and how awful the world actually can be.
Yeah. It's also a look at how some of the best people can be, though, because I got to tell you, like, when you're looking at the missing persons specifically, you see all these people who are out there who are just trying to find people, and when you talk to them, a lot of them are like, oh yeah, well, my brother was missing, or my aunt was missing, or something else, or they're still missing, but they're out there and they're trying to help other people because they know what it's like. And there are people that just see that there's a need and are like, I can do this and I can help, and they just jump in there. And you will meet also some terrible people in the field. I'm not going to act like everybody is nice. There are a lot of not nice people also, but you will meet some of the absolute best people ever. And I don't think any of us is particularly normal, so there's that. I don't know that you can do this kind of work and even if you start off normal, I don't think you can do it and be
and end
normal,
up normal.
Long term.
So I have two questions.
Okay.
Number one,
Sarah, can you shut your mic off? That's number one.
Please shut your mic off. Thank you. Where should people be looking for, the best information, the best way to help you and help what you're doing online? Where's the best place that people can look?
Okay, so if you want to help with trans cases specifically, you should go to transdoetaskforce.org. If you want to see the forensic genealogy stuff that we're doing, you can look at redgraveresearch.com. I think it's .com. And then Anthony gave the address, the SG4LE site, if you actually want to train to be able to do this stuff yourself. And we have Facebook accounts and Twitter and Instagram. And those are for the organizations, and I have my personal Facebook and Instagram and Twitter accounts too, where I share a lot of the same stuff. And so on Facebook, it should be Jessica Veltstra Collins, I think.
Let me tell you, the amount of fucking times that I have, for some reason, my brain just wants to remove a T from your last name. Every time I wrote the intro out, I did the promos, and I got to the point where I would stare at your Facebook name side by side with what I was doing, and I still couldn't put the T's. I don't know what, there was something in my brain that was nope, I'm not doing it. I had to get Rick to come over to my computer and be like, I need you to look at this because I'm staring at it and I know I'm still fucking something up.
Everyone does that.
I don't understand
know why.
I don't get it. I don't know why.
It's always the T that's after the L. Everyone forgets it. It's
Veltstra.
Yeah, it means field straw.
I don't know what my deal was with that, but I just couldn't fucking, no matter how many times I typed it, I just did it over and over and over. I'm like, what is fucking wrong with me, man?
Listen, okay, but online I go by Kayla or Kayla Owl basically everywhere, and that's usually a lot easier to remember. And I've been on that name since the 90s, so.
Nice.
I'm sure.
So my second question.
Yeah.
We reserve this for our guests. If you had a message, and right now you had a message to give to the whole world, and this was your last chance to give it to the whole world, what would it be?
Stop being assholes. No, really, just treat people with like a baseline of respect. If you meet someone and they tell you their name, use their name. If you know them for a long time and they want you to use a different name, then use that name that they say they want to be called by. Use the pronouns that they want you to use, and just don't be an asshole. Just be nice. What the fuck? No, so much of everything would be better if you were just nice to other people and not a jerk for no fucking reason.
I just want to tell you how amazing it has been to have you on the show this evening. And I want to tell you how appreciated you are here and how much I'm sure I'm always open to learn things. I feel like I learned things tonight. I feel like other people did. People in the chat tonight were thanking you for being here this evening.
Yeah, Alexa said earlier, thank you for everything you do. I didn't read that from the comments earlier, and I should have, but I just glided over everything. But I want to make sure that I said that.
But I'm not doing it so people, it's appreciated, but I really don't do it so that people can thank me. You know what I mean?
I don't think that anyone.
Well, you're gonna have to live with it.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to make the world suck just a little bit less in the ways that I can, and that's it. And I don't think that's not something that I should be thankful for. I think everybody should try and make the world just a little bit better in exactly the ways that they can, and then things will get better.
I think that what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that you are very appreciated, and this show 100% backs you up.
Thank you.
100%. And thank you so much. So I'm going to cut to a music video from Chill Smith, who has been here, and we're going to close out the show. You guys don't have to hang up. You can hang out on Skype a little bit if you want to. So I am going to do that. And I just want to say that if you're watching the show tonight, and you enjoyed it, please hit like, please follow our guest and everything that she does. It's been amazing to have you tonight, and thank you everybody for watching this evening, because it has been a phenomenal show and certainly one that I'm definitely proud of. So thank you everybody tonight.
Spot a black man out.
Thank you so much, Chill Smith, for being here tonight, dude. Thank you so much,
Awesome talk. We got some awesome talk today. Awesome talk, oh, awesome talk. You all like the way we talk. It's awesome, awesome talk, oh, awesome talk. You like the way we awesome talk. It's awesome talk, fucking awesome talk. You like the way we talk. It's fucking awesome. Ooh.